My name is Gregory Allen McCowan from Houston, Texas. State ID 28632893. It's 10:15 a.m. in the morning, October 5th, 2025. Now, 10:15 is my father's birthday in 1929, October 15th, 1929. So that's when King David came into the world after he was murdered, being King David as the Tsar of Russia, Nicholas II. That's another story. And I was his son that was murdered in Catterburg with him, and that wasn't a very pleasant experience. So that when I was called of God, and all the Jews can do for 45 years is try to kill me, God's telling the Jews, you haven't got a ghost of a chance of living forever with the Son of God. And so that I got many stories of many lives to tell. Uh, so it's not hasn't been an interesting experience uh, having to tell the Jews that go to hell forever because they don't want to live with a son of God, and I don't want them to live with me either after that experience. That you can understand. I always had a question: why didn't Adolf Hitler fight with the Jewish people? He could have won the war. Well, the Jewish people were the ones fighting against him originally, so he could never fight with the Jewish people. And so here I am. I'm going to be president of the United States. The Jewish people are fighting against me. And I can't fight with the Jewish people because they are the enemy invading the United States to attempt armed overthrow, claiming that you can't kill our international authority of Jews. Well, there is no international authority of Jews in the Constitution of the United States that can commit armed overthrow either. And there is no Jewish state ratified, except the Balfour Act of November 2nd, 1917. The Zionist International Community of England says that whatever land that the Jewish people occupy, they have the right of a sovereign authority of government over that land. So here we got two governments in America. The government of Jewish England, federal communists, them all, and we the people, the state citizens of the 1787 Constitution. And two governments can't live side by side, especially when one of the governments, the Jew England government, are hostiles. And so when we the people, by majority, create a Lord God president, that government's going to go berserk in hostilities that we're going to complete their kidnapping of the United States. No, they're not. And no, they are not going to complete the kidnapping of the United States. And then England would get all upset that their government in America got destroyed because of the 1775 insurrection. Well, that's too bad about that 1775 insurrection. But you can't call the United States insurrection in 2025 unless you are actually a government of England declaring we're still insurrection and you're still trying to kidnap the United States. And then your international invasion, well, you're welcome to go to hell. All the gates of hell will be open for you to enter the United States, but once you get inside of hell, you will all be destroyed. And then when hell goes out of the United States, we're going to exterminate England off the face of the earth. It's going to be an island for animals for 1,000 years. Now, the interesting thing about my second seal vision was not the right-hand thumbnail where Jesus and Jehovah had came out on my thumbnail, and the image of Jehovah has always been there ever since, never left. Once he made his impression on that thumbnail by his arrival, it's like a two-edged sword right there on my thumbnail, never leaving. But on the left-hand thumbnail came out a pale horse rider, a golden horse with a white cloth rider, and that corresponded with the fourth horse of the apocalypse, which I explained in the letters, the first three. George Washington fought England as the white horse. Napoleon fought England as the red horse. And Adolf Hitler fought England as the black horse. And now Gregory Allen McCowan, I fight England as the pale horse. And guess what? It says hell follows after him. So all you people in hell right now of Donald Trump, well, we're going to have those gates of hell wide open for the foreign invasion from England, and then we're going to annihilate them. You can't kill our government of England. There is no government of England in the Constitution. It's all in your insanity as lunatics of hallucination that you can assume to be your own Donald Trump government of England. Now you know the tragedy that's unfolding in America. And why God the Father and Jesus Christ didn't want me to die. Because otherwise, if I died, everybody was going to be killed by the Jews. And then there's nothing to stop Apophis from annihilating the planet. So, after we destroy the government of England and America, which Donald Trump will only have about 25% of the population standing there, we elected him. 25%? A minority of the people? You see, you don't have to have a legal voting registration to sign the petition as a state citizen legislature of Article 5. There is no listed requirement. You are just in America, you're a state citizen, you're a member of the legislature, therefore, of that state. And every one of your babies, your 1-year-old, your 2-year-olds, your 3-year-olds could all be signed on as the count of the consensus of that petition for the number of Americans that, therefore, want a constitutional convention for electing a president and replace Donald Trump. That he's no longer going to be president communists in the White House kidnapping the United States, stealing our wealth without representation, that anyone told him that we elected him to rob us of 30% of our wealth. Because if all the other politicians agree with that, well, we'll impeach them all. You're going to have to create a new government. And they will be trained and educated to serve we the people. If the other idiots already in there being impeached don't know how to do it themselves anyways, that they just surrender to Donald Trump. Well, you're not surrendering to me. You're surrendering to the Constitution. Me, I'm just the enforcement behind the Constitution to make sure that it is, as George Washington had done, properly observed and respected. That's why I had my own conglomerate of weapons development and manufacturing, create a new superior weapon that they can't surrender that. And they're not going to be surrendering that. It's just going to be another Concord and Lexington battle where Donald Trump says you have to surrender your weapon to federal licensing. There is no federal licensing in the Bill of Rights. There is no federal state in the Constitution. This is all an illusion of extortionists invading the United States with idolatry and ideology to kidnap the American people from their freedom. And this extortion are murderers. Because if you don't surrender, they want to murder you. Now you know why they couldn't kill me. Because God wasn't going to let them take away this story of certifying God in heaven by my being killed. So they got their judgment day coming, and they're all going to claim they're innocent. And they're all the blood of Satan condemned by Jesus Christ from John chapter 8, verse 44, that they're the family of Satan, and Satan was a liar, and Satan was a murderer, and all the Jews are going to stand there and say they're innocent. And it's like, yeah, I'm sorry, your government of England is about to be arrested. And when the government of England says, you can't arrest us, we have international law rights. And international law doesn't have any rights in the Constitution. So it's just an obvious invasion. When the United Nations invaded the United States in 1945, the intent of the United Nations invading the United States was to kidnap the American people. And so here's the Jewish people thinking that, oh, we got this great story that we were forgiven by Jesus Christ for murdering him. Now the Jewish people think they can walk around the streets committing murder, kidnapping, armed robbery, extortion, blackmail. And slavery of the American people by federal income taxes. And they can all be forgiven for their crimes against the American people. And as I related earlier, Satan attempted murder of God, but couldn't kill God, and God threw him out of heaven anyways. Probably the Big Bang. Destroyed Satan's universe and said, I'll reorder it later. But here these Jewish people think I've experienced 696 attempted murders. And one of them was a glass shard pie that they delivered to me by a Jewish woman where I was living in the basement of her home in Oak Park, and nearly killed me after I spewed out 2 pints of blood before I stopped the bleeding. You only got 4 pints of blood in your body. So if I went unconscious, it was over with. And I bled 48 times out of that wound over the years. Because that wound opens up from time to time to time. Nothing I can do about it. Just reminds me that the Jews attempted murder. But I don't count each of these 48 times that I spewed blood as another attempted murder. Just counted the event once. What else that'd be up at 740 attempted murders for every time I had to spew blood from that wound. Or I should say 744. The number of home runs that Henry Aaron hit. Got a lot of numbers, remember. So the Jews, they can either surrender, and if they don't, they can fight to their death. But the rest of the Americans that signed the Book of Life for that Article 5 Convention of the My Petition will be bulletproof. Because God won't want to see them die in my service either. And everybody else who wants to fight, commit treason as if they can be a government to kidnap the American people, well, this is going to end the kidnapping in the United States. And then, of course, we got the king's fornication, Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, sitting there smiling friends. Yeah, they had a great society of New York City rabbis, and they were kidnapping the United States, transporting them out of the American people. An FBI director wanting to investigate the child kidnapping taken out of the United States through the Port Authority in New York City became the Port Authority chief September 11th, 2001. And they made sure he died in that building. So he didn't get out of the building because he was murdered in it before the buildings were destroyed. And they still continued kidnapping the United States afterwards. Now you Americans have a Lord God Almighty that you can put in command in a very short period of time, and we can fight the minority of those people that want to stand there claiming they're innocent, fighting a battle to murder you, to kidnap the United States, as all communists do when they kidnap a nation. Because they don't consent to the people having any rights at law except the Communist International Law of England to kidnap the population and kill them. And it goes all the way back to Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 3, where the Jewish rabbi, after murdering Israel, changed the text of Moses wrote and added in the verse that we're going to invade all the nations of the world, kidnap any of their gods they worship, and kill all that worship their God. And that's been the credo of the Jewish rabbi, demanding you have to surrender to us and we'll kill you. And that is unacceptable to the American people, that they have to stand there and accept an ultimatum from the Jewish people or Donald Trump that if you don't surrender, we're going to attack you. So here comes the entire communist world of the United Nations of England's empire. Yeah, Jew England's communist empire to invade the United States to effect our kidnapping of the United States. And there's a lot of prophecies that I've already written. That the fury will rise up in my face at that moment, and I'll be vindicated in the destruction of their assault being annihilated. And then in Revelation chapter 19, I go around the world and destroy them off the face of the earth. One step at a time, day by day. Now, I've got to read you the Riot Act, folks. I'm not promoting violence. I'm not condoning any violence. And I'll take responsibility for no violence. This is a civilized constitutional process that we have a right as we the people to perform. It is only those who want to kidnap us, claiming their jurisdiction supersedes yours as the people being the government of the state citizen legislature, that they are violating the law because they don't have no oath of God to allow you to elect a God to be president of the United States. And in that regard, once they transgress the law and they want to commit their treasonous traitors invading the United States by a foreign ideology that claims that their international law of England supersedes the Constitution of the United States, well, you'll know just what to do. And your children will have no problem pulling a trigger. You know, I had to JFK assassin, Grassy Knoll assassin, as one of my co-workers at the company once. He said, "You don't point a finger unless you mean to pull the trigger." So you just restrain yourself, because you know when you have to point your finger, you're going to pull that trigger. And I've had the Jewish people vote on me without any declaration of war. The yellow-bellied bastard cowards, thinking they have it as their privilege that they're forgiven for murder, is a false teaching in the church, and it's far from the truth. Rabbi Saul was never forgiven by Jesus Christ. It was just a lie, a deceit to infiltrate the church and to murder. And the Jewish people invaded Russia from England in the 11th century, and it took 1,600 years to conquer England. It only took 800 years to conquer Russia. Well, our colony started in the 1608, 1610 of Anglo-Saxons escaping out of Jew England to survive in the New World. Well, now we're 400 years, and here comes the Jewish people thinking that they're going to accomplish their conquest of the United States. So you had to understand a story which I wrote of my bride being kidnapped, and from 1985 to 1997, before I received the book of Nostradamus. And in the book of Nostradamus, he explained to me the entire story of what happened, of course, in the prophecies that I've illustrated in my books. It's, you know, a man who's been wronged. But I didn't go out and buy a gun and turn violent to dishonor God in heaven by any manner that I would hold my patience and discipline, wait for the day of the resurrection, and the day of judgment, which we're going to be approaching very shortly. The federal government is not declaring war against kidnappers when it's the federal government of the Soviet socialist Jews, of the rabbis of New York, of the government of England. They're not going to declare war against themselves kidnapping the United States. It's the undeclared war to kidnap the United States that they're misrepresenting the American people. And you don't have to stand for that representation any longer. your constitutional convention, Article 5 of your state legislature signatures gathered in 3/4 of the majority of the population of the United States can end their government of kidnapping. And when they want to fight, well, I didn't initiate the violence, they did. We're only going to respond in self-defense. And it will be brutal. So let me get back into the reading here so I can complete the video that I intended. And I'll start in with a recap from the original. George Washington wins 1775-1783 war for we the people legislature constitution law. Fast forward to the future in Tom Cruise samurai anthology, and while ancient samurai tradition are in conflict with the modernized immortal nation of Japan, they show a civil war in Japan between ancient tradition and the modernization of Japan with American industrial advancement by trade and Admiral Perry arriving in Japan. The American trade had blossomed, a modernized Japan with American industrial capacity. China's empire recognizes capacity, desiring trade with New England for reciprocal. Recognizing the trade desire, New England, as Alaska later, demanded Hong Kong lands, formalized July 1st, 1897, for a 100-year lease of Hong Kong Bastion as New England title. Now the Trump saga begins. Even without inheritance of his father, ? Trump made billions kidnapping by sex slave trade. King of fornication, now president, kidnapped Brooke Shields and 56,000 New York City models kidnapped. This was in 1986. Brooke Shields kidnapped. The day after I presented myself, her mother and her walked away, and the next day in Chicago they were kidnapped. Or she was kidnapped, and the mother lost her daughter, and out pops the imposter. To her utter shock and dismay, they were going to foist the kidnapping of Brooke Shields that was supposed to be my wife. And I cried for 49 days. Couldn't help it. Now, this all goes back to Zechariah, chapter 11, the beauty and the bands. Well, the bands was me. You see that? My hand got busted in a fall, December 16th, 2021. I couldn't pull the hand out after being displaced. The reason is that the band was holding back my hand from being stretched back out, because all up and down my arm, and I took pictures of it, all up and down my arm, the entire band had snapped at the time I had fallen, and snapping out of place broke the blood vessels up and down the length of that band and caused the bruising of internal bleeding inside of where the band was stretching up and down my hand. Earlier, I could twist my wrist and the band could be seen flopping back and forth over this bone here in my body. So I already knew I was the bands of the story, and there was beauty. And in the verses, in one day she was going to be kidnapped after I said hello. And that's exactly what happened. They wanted to show their arrogant bigotry of kidnapping in America, that they could kidnap her, and they planned it for 7 years, since 1978, when Brooke Shields says she was going to be buried to Christ. That after they identified Christ, they would kidnap her and replace her. Well, she identified Christ, and then they kidnapped her. And I've been under assault by the Jewish people ever since. An undeclared war by a foreign invasion of an enemy blood, of an ideology of rabbis from Jerusalem to kidnap nations and kill their populations. And now you know why Adolf Hitler wasn't fighting with the Jewish people when they tried to invade and conquer Germany. And in the movie Band of Brothers, there's a German woman that says, and they quoted it and wrote it out, "You're going to do the same thing we did someday in America." And you'll understand why. The only thing that saved Germany was Adolf Hitler declared war against America just for America to save Germany. Because if he was going to lose his war against Russia, he wanted the German people to be saved by the Americans. Now that's our influences that important inside of Europe. Even though the Jewish people are still presenting their extortion inside of Europe. And that's illustrated in the books, in the Revelations, that the Jewish people want to conquer Europe and create their own Jewish kings over their people. So that when Donald Trump refuses to surrender to our Constitution, Article 5, for all intents and purposes, is the law of the land, because it's 75% of the popular opinion, doesn't have to be registered voters, it's just the state citizen legislature signatures. Doesn't mean you have to be qualified as an electoral vote. You just have to be an American in the United States. And when he refuses all the kings of fornication that Donald Trump sold all those 56,000 women to around the world, they're going to come back with their armies to try and conquer you and complete the kidnapping of the United States. So this is the outflanking that I mentioned to the military that, yeah, you're going to be deployed around the world. Load yourself up. There's going to be a logistical interruption for a short period of time by which you can maintain your station while the Americans settle the issue among themselves. And then afterwards, we will resume our economic activity and their logistics delivery. I don't expect to lose a civil war, not with 3/4 of the American people on my side. Well, Trump made his money selling all the kidnapped women, and now he can start doing his realty. Then Trump builds Trump Tower in New York City and creates entrapment in Atlantic City, Trump Casino, enticing a New York City bank to assume financial responsibility of Trump Casino bank operations. The role of a roulette wheel. 100 kings place $130,000 on number 13 at $75. You do the math. 100 kings place $130,000 on number 13 at $75 a payoff. An instant $975 million loss. Here's Trump paying off all the kings of fornication on his casino. Instant New York City bankruptcy responsible. Trump declares tax-free exemption for our next 15 years. Trump assumes the loss is his, even though the bank paid off the loss and Trump Casino went bankrupt. This event was just 2 years before Jew England had to surrender Hong Kong, July 1st, 1997. Now, we all know one of the most famous stars in Hollywood is a July 1st birth. Guess who that is? Enders the President William Jefferson Clinton conspiracy. Trained as a Jew England Rhodes Scholar at Oxford in 3 Moscow semesters. Can you imagine that? When you get a Rhodes Scholarship, you get to get trained in Oxford, and you have 3 semesters of your education in Moscow. You're going to be a trained communist. Bill Clinton, the trained communist. Jew England did crash all Asian stock market value in their Hong Kong exit July 1st, 1997. We all know the great Southeast Asia market crash, stealing over 20% of $40 trillion exchange, bankrupting a Barings Bank of England. They were in derivatives, and they lost all their wealth, and they're just another Bank of England. Tragedy. Federal Reserve Bank notes stamped by foreign nations are useless for an invasion of America. So when all this Federal Reserve Bank note went into the World Bank and then went into foreign banks, the foreign nations stamped American money with their own stamps, and it was useless to bring all this stolen 8 trillion, $9 trillion out of Southeast Asia and put it into American circulation with foreign stamps on it as if a foreign invasion had occurred in the United States. So to cover up on this international theft of wealth and to return the money back to the United States, New England had to burn $9 trillion of Federal Reserve Bank of New England notes, New York City, England notes total. Burn them. There's this huge fog over Southeast Asia, burning all this monetary. And yet, they said there's a huge jungle fire, but they couldn't show any fire in any jungle. In fact, it had disrupted international air travel because of all the burning of all the money. President Clinton announces a new denomination printed to replace the $9 trillion. So here's where Bill Clinton says, we're going to make a new monetary note and replace all the money that you burned with all that foreign bank stamp. So that New England will invade a New York stock market with their new denomination issued. So Donald, here's Bill. England burned $9 trillion, and Clinton joined in the conspiracy to replace the money being burned so that England could use the money that Clinton surrendered to England to invade the United States. Illegally recognizing this criminal theft of Asian nations' wealth, Clinton has a Jew invasion. Esau, Jew, Edom, Egypt, England, rabbi, slave masters now are prepared to kidnap America. So how does Jew, England, Hong Kong invest in New York stocks and sell short without taxation? So they could, in 1998, the stock market went up like $8 to $9 trillion in a very short period of time after Bill Clinton had issued the new currency, surrendered it to England. England invaded the United States, seizing the possession of stocks in New York City. The market skyrocketed. All the Americans started buying stocks, walking into the trap. The Trump saga continues. With Trump newly established tax exemption, New England uses Trump for their conduit. So they're going to go invest in the United States through Trump. In 1998, Clinton monetary note issue, New York stock market explodes in value by $8 trillion. This Clinton issued Hong Kong money to New England, placed through Trump into New York City. It did not take long before the Americans walked into a trap and buy a rising stock market value. Then the tax-exempt Trump with New England monetary investment could sell short the sting. My own act declaring the sting of March 20th, March of 2000, I should say, would be years after the event occurring. General Motors bankrupt by 2004 was an aftermath of destruction delayed in their response. Of the $16 trillion stolen from state citizen investors, Congress only got $4 trillion in taxes. In other words, selling short, you're supposed to get 50%. Well, if 16 trillion was stolen from the American people, Congress should have got $8 trillion of it. But that wasn't the case because Trump didn't have to pay taxes. And so the money that Trump had invested was now tax-free. He could sell short and rob the American people and take the money out of Congress without having to pay any taxes for selling short all the stocks that England had invested through him. Jew England Hong Kong would then reinvest without losing their monetary control's value because they didn't have to pay taxes. Again, investing through Trump, they took over New York City corporate stock majority in control. Before Trump tax exemption expired, the Jews had their October 2008 stock market crash. After the crash, Congress got only $2 trillion in tax. And Obama gave the Jews $1.4 trillion back of that. So there was a lot more money invested by Trump into the stock market so that when he sold short, they weren't going to be paying any taxes. This is how Donald Trump was robbing the United States before Donald Trump became president. And it's all listed facts. In the federal records. With Obama joking later at a charity event, Trump to be the next president of Jew England. In other words, it didn't matter that you're going to be voting in any election. The American people voted for Hillary Clinton, and they still put Trump in as president, and the Democratic people protested in the street, went wild that their vote was not recognized, only because supposedly the majority of the voters had elected Obama. It was a shoo-in that the majority of the voters would elect Hillary Clinton. But that's not what the Federal Reserve Bank of Jew England wanted. They wanted Donald Trump. So it's just a fiasco. You know, they go through an election in Moscow for Putin. It's just a showpiece to say that, oh, we got democracy going on in Russia. He's already an appointed dictator for life. Nobody elected Trump, ? He was just appointed by the Federal Reserve Bank of Jew England. The Democratic crowds of protests erupted in all the streets of America for their criminal election. A Democratic backlash will be Trump backstabbing militia for his claim of being defrauded. And that in the 2020 election. Trump did not win a 2024 election, appointed Jew England, New York City Federal Reserve Bank president mandate. And there's a lot of YouTube channels out there that describe that Trump was not elected president. They're just, you just going through the motions, acting like you're free. Well, when you do this Article 5 petition of the state legislature citizens listed, from your babies, title as names of state citizen legislature, all the way to the retirees in their retirement homes, and all the working stiffs in between, that you want to be free of a presidential kidnapping, that's going to be more than 3/4 of the American population. And you're going to see the violence, not from the American people. You're going to see the violence of a foreign invasion that wants to kidnap the United States. A minority of communists. You don't have to go anywhere in the world to fight communists. They're already here. kidnap all states, 1775 war as Constitution of the 1787 United States Citizen Legislatures. Now, New York City media purposely distort polls to eliminate a Trump as less than 20% favor. They can't report the actual polls they take. They just create a poll, fabricate it. No, Trump's got 45, he's got 40%. It's all hallucination. It's whatever they want to tell you. When the American people signed that referendum of we the people for a constitutional convention of Article 5 in the petition of Gregory L. McCowan 2863-2893 to be elected President of the United States, they cannot deny that registered and certified count and claim it does not exist. They're facing their Armageddon day. They're facing their apocalypse. They're facing their judgment day of we the people. Now, New York City media purposely distort polls to eliminate Trump as less than 20% favor. A separate poll being a book of life by a Lamb of God, Article 5 petition consensus, ? Will be close to 290 million signatures that cannot be refused assembly of we the people. We the people to be a new government assaulted by the book of the dead Jew communist. Gregory L. McCowan, Houston, Texas, stands a throne of God. Revelation 12, verse 5. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God. That was in Michigan State University. When I accepted my calling and said, okay, I'm going to be killed because I'm going to call myself the Son of God. I'll see you in heaven shortly. Well, that wasn't going to be the case. God said, well, no, you're not. They're going to try and kill you, and they're not going to be able to do it. And it says, the child was caught up in God and to his throne. And so on October 18th, 2005, Jesus Christ told me I'm going to be a president. How that was going to happen was another lesson in time to learn. And I learned that lesson. Now I have to educate the American people on how they tell the government it's not going to kidnap them anymore. But unlike our children being kidnapped and sold around the Empire of England, when we kidnap their children, they ain't going to be sold. There's like 24 prophecies of dashing their children against the wall. There's no place for them to be sold, and there's no place for them to live in the United States. Well, I say here, my 4th YouTube video presentation will show my being caught up to God from MSU. I'll have to wait for that into another video, but all the prophecies in the mirrors that I created, they're all illustrated in my books and spoken about anyways. And so it's neither, I simplify these videos without having to make the presentations because all the literature has already been presented and all the mirrors have been shown that I produced in illustrating my relationship with God. And once that point in time had been reached, On June 28, 1993, at Motor City Sign, I smashed them all. I had a picture of them all anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I didn't want those mirrors to be stolen from me for somebody else to claim themselves God because they were in possession of my mirrors. And of course, in the book of Revelations, chapter 2 and 3, it says, he will smash them to shivers, and I'll give him the morning stars. So, this is my solar system. Not that I'm worried about the aliens coming in. They probably understand God more than I do. A lot longer. Living the drama for almost 290 million Christian signatures to witness a throne. There you go. You have your throne of God. That Mary Magdalene had given birth by King David as the father of Christ Peter. For Marlene, I leave out her maiden name, her middle name, McCowan, did give birth to Russell D. McCowan, Christ Peter, for protection of my Social Security disability insurance benefits. I cannot tell her middle name or maiden name now, only because those are keys into the Social Security vaults, and without those names given, my benefits are secured. There is no access to my birth certificate in Detroit, as I got a last one in 1993 for Texas. That was proven. It was scorched by fire on December 20th, 1994, for a signature fire event. That it survived even trauma of Texas homelessness events and kidnapping, incredulous, but a billion-dollar woman was created nonetheless for her innocent, ignorant effort. Just did not tell her of the $15,000 yellow diamond that she was also safekeeping then. The fact is, I handed it to her. She hands it back. I hand it back again. She gives it to me later. It was all about the SSA, SSDI birth certificate being exchanged to safeguard identity. In multiple exchanges, she had protected my birth certificate and a yellow diamond. Then I am arrested by DHS July 27, 2017, without a birth certificate or a yellow diamond in possession. You want to know drama? The day I return back to her my birth certificate and yellow diamond, she hands me a letter by SSA and I read it aloud to her. Her reply, "You're going to be arrested." I did not say aloud, as in thought, not with my birth certificate or yellow diamond. As I just handed her both with her mail delivery, their rescue safely taken away. I had to have the birth certificate to go in to the Social Security Administration on July 14th to show them the birth certificate. And then that would verify my identity to be given my Social Security disability insurance. I got this huge hernia from an attempted murder by sheriffs on January 17, 2004. It suddenly was beyond capability of my performing adequately in any manner of work. And so what they wanted to do was to seize my papers and destroy the evidence of my life. And they failed. I secured it so that I still had the birth certificate, so that when the the state of Texas required me to file again for my identification in 2024, I still had it. The same birth certificate that was burned in a fire in 1994, 30 years before. But it was still illegible. It was still the stamped copy, raised stamp that legalized the document that they could accept. And it survived the trauma of all the homeless adventures, walking the street in Michigan, Florida, Texas. Literally despised. Now, the story, Christ Peter and the Yellow Diamond. While working for Roadrunner Maintenance in Pontiac, Silverdome, 1993. This was after Motor City Sign, where I survived attempted murder. There's another story that I've written previously of the landlord trying to murder me. He was one of the 3 tramps in Dallas. And he usually took trips, ordered as a hired hand to go around the country and assassinate people. So I was living with a murderer, working for me at the time too. So nothing I could do about it. If he didn't get caught, he was going to die eventually of old age anyways. But he won't be in heaven. I was mopping the concrete floor stalls as a regular maintenance. A black manager came along and demanded I go to a 3rd floor mopping. I complained that I still had 2 more concession stalls to mop at the time. Do them and then help them finish the 3rd floor mopping. It was after that exchange that I would discover the Yellow Diamond. Eagle-eyed to the sweep of my mop, I spotted the sparkle of light flashing me. Inspecting the anomaly, I picked out a yellow stone from the concrete grooves. Well-manicured cut stone over a carat in size, having been lost from possession. Now, I suspect that some girl lost this diamond during a roller rink event in the Silverdome, which on once a week they would have people coming in and roller skate around the floor, and somehow the diamond popped off of her ring and went into the groove. Now, I wasn't going to return this in to find the owner and have it returned, because it's just unidentifiable. It would just be like handing it to somebody else to steal it from me. And it'd be, 3 decades before I'd actually be able to return it to the original owner. So, in that regard, I kept it. Now, I found a diamond earring, zirconium stones, at a time of a Green Bay Packer game. And I turned those into the Pontiac police officers so that they could find an owner. But nobody claimed it. And so after 6 months, they called me up and said, it's all yours. I couldn't do that with the Yellow Diamond. That Yellow Diamond would never made it back to me in 6 months. But the person that I suspect that lost the earring was probably from Wisconsin, Green Bay, down visiting during the Green Bay Packer Detroit Lion game. And so some girl, a little bit elderly age now, from the youth that she was wearing the earring can be identified later. After finishing my 2 stalls, which were roller rink participants someone lost, I went to the 3rd floor only to find they had almost finished their own mopping exercise. Diamond stronger than glass? I cut the initials GAM. The tip finally gave way as proof of my effort. The silver dome destroyed. I had a diamond. I could not surrender it without fraud causing me to lose the discovery. I only shown it to jewelers in Florida as tell me it was an amber stone. Yeah, it's just an amber stone, $25. Well, I'm not desperate for $25. I know such means exist and amber material can cut glass. So I was amused. I was not that impoverished to surrender $15,000 for $25 opinion. The Yellowstone has survived my debacle in Florida, or Michigan, Florida, Texas, until today. Star Gossip Magazine of Michigan, 1998-2000, Nostradamus, Explosion of the Yellowstone. Explosion of the Yellowstone. All right, I've already explained about the atomic bomb glass design I made in Tyler, Texas, and my gold machine with metastasized hydrogen metal that makes hydrogen metal explosive at 40,000 feet per second, enough to make fissionable material explode as an atomic bomb, which we're going to have atomic ammunition. So here's the Star Gossip Magazine of Michigan, 1998-2000, Nostradamus, Explosion of the Yellowstone. And they all think that that's Yellowstone National Park that's going to explode. Well, I knew better. Because I had the Yellowstone. I was the son of God. I already had the book of Nostradamus. I knew who I was. And now they're writing in literature that at some point in time there's going to be the explosion of the Yellowstone. And so what is President Dwight David Eisenhower atomic ammunition? Gregory Allen McCown. 9/27/2025, 11th hour, the 2nd minute, the 3rd second p.m. Here is the Lord. Oh, I got some spelling errors I got to correct. Here's the long-haired Gregory Allen McCown as Nostradamus wearing a crown of gold. Now, I got my long hair. It comes down to here, basically. It's about real long. I just wrap it up, wear it under a cap. Sometimes people have seen me wearing a clip of which I could find here. Not to waste time. What it is basically a red hairpin where I could twist up the hair and then clip on the red clip, and then I go around wearing my long hair open to the air with the red clip on top of the head. They all may think whatever they want. Believe believe me, I had never touched another man inappropriately. And I had the responsibility of God in heaven not to do that. But anyways, I have not cut my hair since June 2017, after arrest, July 27, 2017, in the gold machine. A mushroom cloud from metastasized hydrogen metal atomic ammunition explodes. The tree of life, the crown of gold at a time of the throne of God, becomes the book of life president. The brides of Christ Peter, arrows of justice with an image of a nuclear ballistic railgun. Wheel of Time signature is after December 22nd, 2012. I took my snapshot picture July 2nd, 2012. So here we have out of a picture that I deliver in my writing of the lost books of the Old Testament, lost books of Nostradamus paintings that were discovered in 2003. And there is a man with a crown on his head, long hair, got the book open, telling a story. There's a tree, the image of a tree or an atomic explosion, your choice. And underneath is a woman with an arrow of justice. And on the other side are the banking sharks of the Federal Reserve, the Jew Bank of England sharks invading the United States. And there's the image of a woman with an arrow, my nuclear ballistic railgun, for the justice of the moment, with of course, the atomic explosion and the association that this is atomic ammunition in her arrows. So they have these pictures of Nostradamus, lost books of the lost paintings of 2003. You can go online, you can see them. And that's one of the pictures. And there's a lot of other pictures involved in the story of my life with those in association. That just one just proves that I'm involved in all of them. So, I myself, I'm going to be tying up my hair my long hair in a crown, braided crown on top of the head, so everybody can see that. And that will be what Nostradamus says I'm going to be doing in the future. So he put a gold crown on top that all the long hair that's flowing across the shoulders, the hermit, which I won't take this hat off and show you that long hair now. Because I'm not going to make a mess of this presentation after handling it. Let's just put it this way. In December 2024, when I had to take my hat off and have a photograph taken and all the hair came flowing out, one of the black ladies in the presence said, "Wow, isn't that a wonderful crop of hair?" And of course, the Texas Department had to crop the photograph to try and take out my hair from the picture, and also this ribbon out of the view, which I included with my long hair and the ribbon. That they took that all out of the picture as much as they could just to put my face in. But if they show an expansion of the picture, which I'm sure they still have on file and record, You can see it all. The ribbon comes down as if out of the ancient Esau, Jew, Edom, Egypt, England time invasion. A woman, a Statue of Liberty, still free to point an arrow at Esau, Jew, Edom, Egypt, England. Old Jerusalem rabbi bankers as modern day monetary sharks financing invasion to kidnap. The highlighted background, impossible in Nostradamus' day. There's a light blue background in the picture that they present, probably according to the reading that you can't read, so they put in the date, the timing with the scripted images of the astrology. Present reading as for timing. Gregory Allen McCown will have braided his long hair into a crown at Article 5 convention. So I'll have my hair braided up on a crown, so I won't be wearing a commander's cap at that time, but once I shave the crown off after it's been braided, I can wear my commander's cap after that. That was 9/27/2025, 11:02:17 p.m., 9/27/2025, 11:55:26 p.m. 9/28/2025, 12:01:59 a.m. I didn't get my actual birth date in there. I was 3 minutes short. It is not as if I am going outside of box of prophecy events, as they are all now in progress. We, the people, state citizen, Article 5, liberty by a nuclear ballistic railgun, federal communist, 1787, secret society, being public law by Lincoln murder in 1865 Act, has become encouraged by Jew England communists in assaulting a world by murder. Federal communist Jew England, Washington, D.C., garnish resources to murder a world. Citizen Christians need not go anywhere to war on federal Jew communists. They are here. Jew England, federal communist, Washington, D.C. War on the world is war in Article 5. For once, Article 5 state citizen legislature elect a father of George Washington president. Jew England, federal communist, Washington, D.C. refuse a vote of we the people free. We the people refuse UN seats, UN international Jew law claim jurisdiction. Rabbi will not allow state citizen legislature, Article 5 Constitution freedom by United Nations Jew law. The United Nations 1868 New York City Jew Rabbi Bank minority communists facing an 80% majority to be free, refuse to sign a book of life. Jews intend to kidnap, finance foreign invasion to kidnap. Jew communist Washington, D.C. falsely claim a constitution to kidnap our constitution. Jew New York City 1970-2025 kidnappers identified federal communists to deny signing Article 5. Jew England, New York City Federal Communist Empire minority kidnappers intend an invasion. The Jew England communist kidnappers of 1970 to 2025 are the enemy federal Jews had protected. No one declared war on an active war. Kidnapped. Jew England government was kidnappers. So they're not going to declare war on themselves. They're kidnapping the United States. You just have to assemble, we the people say, we're going to end the kidnapping of the United States by a foreign invasion. Now, the father of George Washington is that, in a short script, of Nathan Hale being the man that stood at Bunker Hill, won the battle, but still had to surrender the battlefield after winning the battle. And George Washington said of that man, if it wasn't for that stand at Bunker Hill, his war was a lost cause. So I was directly responsible for supporting George Washington by a valiant stand at Bunker Hill. Later, I would be in New York City and hanged as a spy. And after being hanged, or at the moment of being hanged, I regret that I have only one life to give for my nation. And so here I am, the Son of God, and I go through 696 attempted murders because God remembered that moment and identified me by my own statement. That, when I announce myself the Son of God, they're going to want to kill me. That's not going to happen. So that after that time, while I was in heaven from the death of Nathan Hale, he sent me down as the angel to George Washington and Valley Forge. And this is a story that's in the Library of Congress, that George Washington had seen an angel visiting him. And the angel was telling him, son of the Republic, not the father of the nation, son of the Republic, that Gregory Allen McCowan would be the Republic of the United States, and that George Washington would be my son. And that George Washington said for the identification of the angel, he would create an azure standard. And that was one of the flags and one of the murals that I created February 3rd through February 7th, 1986, of an American flag in the multicolors showing the first two SEAL visions, 1980 and 1985, with Halley's Comet in the background. And it's a surrealistic impression because I didn't put the moon in the mirror, because symbolically my feet were making the scene on the moon as the Apollo moon landings. So Salvador Dali would really understand the surrealistic impression of creating a mural without putting a moon in the edifice of around the earth, because the artist's feet were symbolically a nation whose feet were on the moon. So we go on. We have Trump, a federal communist kidnapper who does not declare war on kidnappers, question mark. The last 55 years, 1970, 2025, these federal Jew New York City communist kidnappers ravaged states. Washington, D.C., Jew New York City communist government misrepresentation, kidnap Congress. Article 5 to impeach Congress and hang every one of the traitors serving Jew kidnappers. Trump kidnapped aliens. United States Title Code 18, Chapter 13, Section 242 through 246. These aliens have state citizen rights. Now, it doesn't mean that they have voting rights until they've been in residence 7 years in the United States. But that doesn't mean that they can't sign as state citizen rights as aliens in the presence of the United States, our sanctuary, as state citizen legislature members for the referendum, that they would be accounted among the consensus for establishing myself as the President of the United States. As I said, it doesn't take any voters' registration requirement in Article 5 to sign that petition. You're in the United States, you're a legislature member, regardless of your status, your age, your parents can sign you on to that referendum. The elderly can sign their names, and every working stiff in between can sign that referendum that they want to be a member of the kingdom of God in the book of life and defend their children from being kidnapped. Trump intimates kidnapping all Christianity. That 100% of state citizen legislature, Article 5 petition for Lord God being president, were unceremoniously foisted upon by a dictator, kidnapping by 30% trade tariff taxes. Kidnapped the United States and robbed every American of 30% of their wealth. The entire 50 states elected legislatures to all be impeached as misrepresentation. The 1775 war cry, no taxation without representation. Well, that got lost somewhere. Not one representation vote of any state elected legislature representation voted on a tax. Jew, Rabbi, England, New York City bank bribery, kidnapped Congress, kidnapped state elected legislatures. They're all bought. Basically, politicians sold their soul to Jew monetary slave masters or are later executed. You know, the legislatures are going to die one way or the other. They're either going to die under the wrath of we the people, or when the communists invade, they're going to kill the legislatures also. So, not a very happy ending for the legislatures. They've only got one choice. If they don't want the Constitution of Gregory Allen McCown, they don't have long to live with Trump either. Whatever JFK vice, he did not sell his soul. And the Federal Reserve Bank note got him killed. He wanted to cancel the Federal Reserve Bank in December 1963. The New England Federal Reserve Bank was in the midst of emptying Fort Knox gold reserves. The Federal Communists killed Lincoln in 1865, invade Soviet 1868 New England of Red Russia. They invade the United States. Once they killed Lincoln, took control of the gold, now the Soviet Jews could invade the United States under the 14th Amendment. The Federal Communist Soviet 1868 New England Red Russia, a Washington, D.C. state capital. The movie Patton is 500,000 Soviet Red Russia Jews protests Patton insult to Red Russia, to Red Moscow. Patton had a Knutsford speech in the movie Patton. You insulted our Russian ally. And here's 500,000 Soviet Jews protesting in Washington, D.C. that they are a Jewish government from Russia that invaded the United States. Now, Gregory Allen McCown impeached Soviet Red Jew Trump. Instant 500,000 Red Jew army. Instantaneously, the Jews are going to become an army in the United States when their president gets impeached. So this is why you got time to get prepared. Because when their Jewish government of communists is dethroned and their authority is eviscerated, They're going to stand up there and say, you're not going to kidnap us. We're going to kidnap you. Communist Jew England Empire, United Nations create Washington, D.C. a state capital. Regardless, 48 state capital ratified neither. They ratified neither a United Nations charter or Washington, D.C. a state. Just England declared Washington, D.C. the state of England. Illegal December 23, 1913, Secretary of State Frank Knox, Secretary of State Frank, quote unquote, Fort Knox, Federal Reserve Bank, question mark. Next 20th century Jew England state kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, and world wars from 1913. This Federal Reserve Bank was committing communist war around the world. Jew England starts World War I, August 1913, invading the Ottoman Empire, controls over Kuwait, question mark. Communist Jew England international law, aggression as war, unwritten world history. Jew England ally, quote unquote ally, Serbian Jews assassinate Ottoman Empire Prince, June 28, 1914. Terrorist of Jew England, quote unquote, Lawrence of, parentheses, Saudi, unparentheses, Arabia. Lawrence of Arabia. Here was Lawrence of Saudi Arabia attacking the Ottoman Empire as an Englishman committing his war in the Middle East. And eventually he took over control of Palestine. They attacked the Ottoman Empire Arabs. Jew England starts World War I, portraying themselves as to last to get involved in Europe. The war started in the Middle East. They distracted that with an assassination in Yugoslavia. And then England sits back and says, we're not going to get involved in the war so that we can act innocent after we started. Gives you a perspective on what's going on in Europe today. The British had Britex, the exit of the British Army off the continent of Europe, because England was going to start another war in the midst of England, or in the midst of Europe. And that's occurring now. In England, even though they participate, send weapons, act like they're friendly, they're going to eventually betray the Europeans. Now, Jew England started World War I, portraying themselves as the last to get involved in Europe. World War I, Jew Rabbi Bank seized Ottoman Empire gold, German gold, Russia, and United States gold. That's all it was. It's all for gold. War reparations at the end of the war, stealing all the gold of Germany. They killed the king of Russia, stole all of his gold, destroyed the Ottoman Empire throne, took all of their gold. And of course, the United States Treasury gold that bought Alaska, that was in the possession of the Jews in New York, because they never shipped it out of the United States to Russia. They just told the Russian king that it was in England. Well, England was in New York City with the United States Treasury, and that was the reason why they created the Federal Reserve Bank, said as soon as the king of Russia was killed, the Federal Reserve Bank assumed the U.S. Treasury gold in New York City as their possession. When Soviet 1868 Jew England state seized all U.S. gold, all United States gold, May 1st, 1933, by Franklin Delano Roosevelt robbery. Yeah, here's the President of the United States. I'm the government of England. I'm going to steal all your gold. And I'll kill anybody that doesn't surrender their gold. So here I got a gold machine. What do you think they want to do to me? The war over gold. Now, when FDR demanded all the state banks and all the state citizens surrender their gold, the New York City Jews melt down all George Washington Article 1, Section 10 gold coin to eradicate history. In other words, when the gold from the Constitution in 1787 until 1861 was delivered in foreign trade to pay the trade tariff taxes for exchange, all that foreign gold was melted down and then re-stamped and reminted into United States coins. But once these United States coins of George Washington were surrendered to FDR, they melted them down, destroying all the history of our coins from George Washington, 1787, and put them into bullion. Because they were erasing the American ownership of that gold and stealing it. We were kidnapped. This was a government of kidnappers. Now, Adolf Hitler melted down all foreign gold seized. He did the same thing. He seized the gold of France, Belgium, Netherlands, Denmark, other nations. But the only gold he didn't melt down was American coins. He did not melt the U.S. gold coin prior to 1933. So the last American coins that still existed were in Nazi Germany after World War II, where Adolf Hitler refused to melt the American gold coins as their possession being stolen. Not by Adolf Hitler, but Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who stole the gold coins and destroyed them. This was the last of George Washington's minted Article 1, Section 10 United States gold coins, found in the vaults in Bavaria by American troops. Congress, 1972, opens Fort Knox. See the insult as bullion melt George Washington's gold coin. All these bullion bars was supposedly already minted into coins for distribution among state citizens, and when all the coins came back in, they melted it all down and put it into bullion to erase the history of American ownership of gold coins. Eventually, all that gold bullion would be sent back to England. Federal Communist Jew New York City rabbi banks to transfer this bullion to England as enemy. As Adolf Hitler melted and seized gold as enemy, Jew New York City Federal Reserve Bank enemy melted U.S. gold coin. The Jew New York City rabbi declared Gregory L. McCown a lunatic No Jews ever tried to kill me? Question mark. The Federal Reserve Bank of Jew England state of war on Gregory Allen McCowan gold machine. Certainly Jew rabbi criminals cannot sign a book of life. I would kill them all anyways. In 1945, the Federal Reserve Bank of Jew England murders gave birth to the World Bank murder. The Jew England World Bank International Law World War I murders begin United Nations world murders. All while Federal Reserve Bank note collateral given Jew England World Bank confiscates Fort Knox gold. So they were just printing money for Jew England in the collateral that they would use to therefore transfer by the gold standard all the Fort Knox gold back to England. So they were printing paper and we were surrendering our gold. The Jew New York City Federal Reserve Bank England enemy had already melted down George Washington gold coin. The conquering of America by a Soviet 1868 Jew state of Washington, D.C. transfers the bullion. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, alarmed, determined to end the transfer, destroying a Federal Reserve Bank, is assassinated. Richard Nixon is betrayed by Soviet Jews in ending the gold standard, creating the transfer. So Nixon just said, the heck with surrendering the gold out of Fort Knox. We'll just end the gold standard for the Federal Reserve Bank, and then they threw him out of office. The Gold Treasure of Heaven by Gregory Allen McCowan survives 696 attempted Jew murders. With all the evidence of communist Jew Old Jerusalem murderers, Armageddon War. So now I go into another segment. Trump kidnaps 56,000 women out of New York City, 1986. Trump kidnaps investors $32 trillion, 1995, 2010. Trump saves America, kidnaps 100% of state citizen legislature wealth, 30% trade tariff tax, 2025. If Trump is your bank of saving America, you get no interest. The Federal Reserve Bank of Jew England get paid. With a heavily armed American Christian population and 268 million Article 5 signatures, that leaves just 67 million communists. Eye for eye of 65 million abortions postnatal. You know, there are about 65 million abortions in the United States that should have been paid by the abortion law, that they should have all been born. But because England was robbing the American people of our wealth, that abortion is literally kidnapping and murder. So that with the eye for eye, tooth for tooth, and all the communists are saying, we're not going to surrender to your constitution of we the people. Well, eye for eye, tooth for tooth of those 65 million abortions, there's going to be 67 million communists killed in the United States in civil war. And it's not that I have to order the civil war, they're going to perform it regardless. Trump Communist Book of the Dead to involve a Jew England Communist United Nations Red Army. Trump in September 18th and 20th, 2025 is finalizing plans of England assault on the United States. Yeah, there's more than one purpose that Donald Trump is inside of England. He's making plans for war against the United States, with Donald Trump is already performing acts of war against the American people. You don't make America great kidnapping 200,000 Hispanic workers. You don't make America great throwing 250,000 workers out of their federal jobs. He's a demolition of an act of war against the United States. And you're going to end his presidency very soon. But he's going to carry on his wars. He's got a mandate as his right to commit murder of American citizens, and that treason will get him killed. So he's over in England formalizing plans for the assault of the United States. A Jew England assault planned October or August. A Jew England assault planned August 2026 to end the November elections. He is sure to lose after. In other words, you can say, well, we're not going to do Gregory Allen McCowan's Article 5 and make him president April 30th, 2026, preempting Trump. We're going to wait through the November election for our Democrats to take control over the United States. Well, not going to happen. Donald Trump and all of his communists are going to create a subversion in the United States for a pretext of invasion. And in that war, he would end the November elections. So if you want to vote and you want to command this nation as we the people, you have your chance before that happens and those events are performed. Even if you do make me president, they're still going to invade the United States in August 2026. But at least you'll have an organized command to fight them. A Jew England assault plan August 2026 to end November elections. He is sure to lose after. But in a regard, April 30th, 2026, inauguration of an Article 5, Lord God President preempts. We do still have our August 26th invasion war, but by a unified nation and not divided states. As all Article 5 state legislature citizens, 80% one union in defense of we the people. The other 20% of Jew communists reacted. Trump declared state citizens as insurrection criminals. Yeah, we're all insurrection criminals of our Constitution. The rule of law by George Washington majority is thrown out the door by a minority of kidnappers. These Jew New York City federal communist minority, has a majority of Jew England world for invading. After 80 years, the Jew England Communist War is now coming in traction to all Americans. I'm going to have to make another letter. This is a long one. Not that it's very long, but I'm only at what page? Page 8 of 29. Oh, there's a lot more story to go. And so in the next segment, we'll get into the early years of a Lord God called of God in 1980. So I'm going to start in the story of my life. But you know the disastrous reality of Donald Trump in his current situation. That now that he's been betrayed, stripped naked, shown for the true traitor he is, The military command doesn't have to. They can all kiss his ass just to save their position and their job so they don't alienate, create a fiasco to get thrown into Leavenworth, because that's exactly what he would do to them. So I'll get this delivered. It's just past noon now. 10 minutes past noon, Central Standard Time, October 5th, 2025. I spent my 2-hour duration that I want to limit these discussions to, only for the fact that people will know if they only have to spend 2 hours at a session, they can get a chance to view the throne of God and understand what intentions that God had called me for to defend the United States. And it's like, tell Trump he can fire me. He's going to declare the United States citizens are insurrection. We, the people, have no constitutional rights to claim convention authority. But that's not the truth. The truth is, we, the people, are listed at the top of that Constitution. And we are the authority. And the elected governments, they can't stop that petition. The elected governments cannot deny that petition. They can't even deny the non-voters from signing that petition, because they're all state citizen legislature members inside the borders of the United States. And our state citizen legislatures are being kidnapped by Donald Trump. And we will not survive as a nation if we do not mobilize the opinion that a government has no right to misrepresent the American people in all the capacity that they're supposed to be electing to defend us, and in doing everything to make us a nation of captive slaves. So with that thought in mind, now the reason I put my head off to the side in this video is because later, when I refashion these videos, I could use the upper screen to my right in actually putting in pictures and writing and literature and other aspects that I don't include now. These are just the raw videos. And then I could go through them, listen to them, put in the appropriate text up in the corner, so that the videos are all being prepared for a later presentation to exemplify and put in other attachments that would be appropriate for a viewing audience to be able to see. And amalgamation of the entire listing of the works themselves. So with that, you can understand that this is just the first efforts. But you still have a chance to see all the videos and all the pictures, because they're public records. And they can't get blood from a stone, because I'm not getting paid for it. They can't sue me because I get no financial gains from it. In that regard, I have presented my defense of the United States and what Jesus Christ wants you to be preserved in as the authority of we the people in my address to the United States, that you can change your history in the face of an enemy who are determined to destroy your history. And Donald Trump is destroying the United States, and that's going to be ended very shortly. Very good. I'm going to enjoy NFL football for the rest of the day, and I'll continue the rest of the letter that I wrote, starting at the statement I made, the early years of the Lord God, called of God in 1980, and we'll take it from there, and I'll tell you the story of my life as it evolved for the defense of the United States, and the tragedy that my enemy tried to commit in my life during that time of my waiting for the research and development of weapons for the defense of the American people. Now that we've reached that point, Donald Trump can do all he wants to seize Concord and Lexington of all the weapons of Gregory Allen Cowan, and the American people are not going to permit my weapon superiority being surrendered to a government of kidnappers. Though they'll try, those weapons will stop them. You have a nice day. Bye-bye.